This week ends with Independence Day, a day in which a Presbyterian minister figures prominently. But first, let's consider two other persons honored by the Presbyterian Book of Common Worship. On Wednesday, July 1st, we are invited to remember Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was born in Connecticut in 1611, the sixth of 11 children of the famous Calvinist minister Lyman Beecher and his first wife, Roxana Foote. Harriet was educated in the classics, in languages, and in mathematics. At the age of 21, she moved to Cincinnati, where her father had become president of Lane Theological Seminary, which was the Presbyterian seminary there. The years that Harriet spent in Cincinnati had a great influence on her later work as an abolitionist. She became acquainted with immigrants from various places and with African Americans who had escaped from slavery. She witnessed riots by white anti-abolitionists, and she attended the Lane debates on slavery in 1834. These 18 days of debates on slavery led to her father and the trustees of the seminary deciding to ban any further discussion of the subject because they feared further violence by white anti-abolitionists. The ban infuriated the students, who left as a group, along with one trustee and one faculty member, to become part of Oberlin College. After her marriage to Calvin Stowe, Harriet moved with him to Maine, where he became a teacher at Bowdoin College. She said that during a communion service at church, she had a vision of a dying slave. That moved her, so that when Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act in 1850, this was an act to force runaway enslaved persons back into slavery, she wrote that anyone who can speak a word for freedom and humanity must speak out. So she began to write Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was released first in serial form and then as a novel. The novel sold 300,000 copies its first year of publication. Stowe's intention was to help Northerners understand the realities of slavery and Southerners to empathize with the people they were enslaving. But Southerners called her arrogant, out of touch, and guilty of slander. After the commencement of the Civil War, she went to Washington for a meeting with President Lincoln. She wrote that it was a friendly meeting and the president was quite funny. Her son claimed that President Lincoln said to her, "So, you are the little woman who wrote the book that started this great war." She went on to become a magazine editor and a promoter of women's rights. She spent her last years in Hartford, Connecticut, a neighbor of Mark Twain, and suffering from dementia. She died July 1st, 1896. Now, our calendar remembers two persons on July 4th, one of them the biblical prophet Hosea. Hosea's life story is somewhat convoluted, and his prophecy is even more so, but he's worth celebrating. You may recall from your Bible history that the United Kingdom of Israel and Judah was divided after the reign of Solomon into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Hosea is the only prophet with a book in the Bible from the kingdom of Israel. His message was a pointed attack at the idolatry of the people, that they had turned away from the true devotion to the Lord their God. He used graphic sexual imagery in his preaching. He portrayed the people of Israel as an unfaithful wife. Apparently, he knew something about that from his own life. His wife, Gomer, had apparently been a prostitute before their marriage, and after she bore him children, she left him to return to plying her trade. But he searched for her and found her, to bring her home again. That led him to understand not only the depth of God's anguish at human unfaithfulness, but also the breadth of God's forgiveness and love. Hosea's preaching describes God as the loving mother who nursed her people and taught them to walk, but also as the spurned husband. And beautifully, as the one who does not react in anger as a human would, saying, "For I am God, and no mortal, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath." Our other observance on July 4th is of John Witherspoon, the only clergyman to sign the Declaration of Independence. Some years ago, Kathleen and I were traveling around East Lothian, Scotland, with a local songwriter named Strathy. We stopped in the village of Gifford for tea, and then he said, "Come with me, I'll show you something." We walked up the street where there was a plaque to John Witherspoon, who was born in that village in 1723. He was educated at Edinburgh and St. Andrews. He was ordained a minister in the Church of Scotland, the established Presbyterian church in that country. In 1768, he accepted the call to come to America to be the first president of the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton University. The college grew and thrived under his leadership. He also taught there, especially moral philosophy. He considered that vital for ministers, lawyers, and those in government. Although he wrote on a number of subjects, for many years he refrained from saying much about the local political situation until he preached a sermon in the spring of 1776 that was widely published throughout the colonies. In that sermon, "The Dominion of Providence over the Passions of Men," he declared that the cause of independence was just and would further the work of God in America. He was elected to represent New Jersey at the Continental Congress, where he voted for independence and for Jefferson's Declaration. Tradition says that during the debate on whether they should declare independence, one member objected that the country was not ripe for independence, and that Witherspoon replied that the country was not only ripe for the measure, but in danger of rotting for the want of it. In November of that year, he closed and evacuated the college as the British advanced on Princeton. The British nearly destroyed the college, so after the war, Witherspoon devoted his life to rebuilding it. He also served in the New Jersey state legislature. When the various presbyteries in America were organized into the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, John Witherspoon was elected the first moderator of the General Assembly in 1789. He died November 15th, 1794, at his farm outside Princeton. I imagine it is because of his importance in the story of our independence that we honor him on July 4th. Let me add one final thing about his legacy. When the Presbyterian Church USA decided to make our central offices in Louisville, Kentucky, the city renamed the street where the Presbyterian Center sits. So if you write to the offices of our church, you address your mail to 100 Witherspoon Street.